no evidence showing that she'd engaged in any activities were a threat to national security. And in fact, in May, a federal court ordered Ms. Osterk's release from detention, noting that the sole basis for the government's detention appeared to be the fact that she co-authored this opinion piece in the Tufts newspaper in March of 2024. Where in the Constitution does it say that the Secretary of State can override the First Amendment protections of free speech? Is there a footnote that I missed somewhere?
There's no constitutional right to a student visa.
But is there a constitutional right? Does it say somewhere that Marco Rubio gets to determine which speech is appropriate and revoke student visas based on what you think constitutes free speech?
There's a statute that says the Secretary of State gets to determine whether someone is a threat. We deny visas every day all over the world.
Do you think that the Immigration and Nationality Act trumps the Constitution of the United States, Mr. Secretary?
Well, Congress can always change the law if you want, but I'm telling you,
Mr.
while I have the authority, I will continue to revoke the visas of these people that come here to tear this country apart.
You said that, Mr. Secretary. Let me reclaim my time, because you are talking about revoking student visas based on what somebody says. And that means that you are trumping the legal supreme court, the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution of the United States.
No one has the right to a student visa.
Mr. Rubio, why did the administration need to use masked, armed, unidentified agents to whisk somebody off the street and deny her counsel for almost 24 hours after her arrest?
Well, you'll have to ask the agencies that did that work. I'm not responsible for that. I'm responsible for revoking the visas of these people that come to tear this country apart.
Secretary Rubio, I'm talking about this particular case where you revoked the student visa of a Turkish citizen who was a graduate student who wrote an op-ed that you didn't like. And suddenly you allowed for masked men to whisk her off the street. And you have multiple jobs, apparently. You're the national security advisor as well. So don't tell me it's not your job. Who snatches her off the street?
We don't do the snatching, but I can tell you we do the visa revocations.
Let me ask you about the national security consequences of masked men on the streets snatching people off the streets. If these are legitimate law enforcement agents carrying out proper arrests, why are they hiding their identities?
Because then radical crazies will try to hurt them.
So you think that U.S. agents who have almost always gone without face coverings, even when they're arresting some of the country's most dangerous criminals, suddenly have so much to fear from a graduate student who wrote an op-ed that they need to be masked? Is that
law
accurate?
student was a guest in the United States on a student visa. No one's entitled to a student visa.
So you revoked her student visa based on an op-ed which trumps the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution.
Someone's coming up here to stir up problems on our campus. We're going to revoke their visa.
She didn't do any of that. She wrote an op-ed. She wrote an op-ed, and I'm talking to you about her particular case.
Claims and your claims. Those are not the facts.
Reclaiming my time, you revoked her student visa because she wrote an op-ed.
And we'll do more. We're going to do more.
I have another question for you. Would you revoke the visa of someone in the United States who published claims that, quote, Jews are an untrustworthy and dangerous group? Yes or no?
We will revoke the visa of anyone who's in this country as a guest who's here to stir up trouble.
Are you going to revoke the visa of somebody who made that?
I mean, the case, I'll look at it. I'm looking to get crazy people out of our country.
Actually, it's not just about revoking. You actually, Secretary Rubio, excuse me, reclaiming my time. Can you explain to me why the Trump administration granted refugee status to Charles Kleinhaus, the white Afrikaner who tweeted that exact statement that I just said? There's the case.
That's not a visa.
You who granted that person to enter the United States.
That's a totally different process. That's someone that applied here through a totally different process.
Secretary Rubio,
visas are a privilege.
Secretary Rubio,
we deny them all the time, and we'll revoke them.
You revoked a visa based on an op-ed, and then you allowed for masked men to snatch somebody off the street.
Your time is expired.
That's your claim.
When a member of Congress accuses the Secretary of State of overriding the First Amendment, you know the hearing is about to become explosive. Representative Pramila Jayapal came prepared with a case involving a Turkish graduate student whose visa was revoked after she co-authored an opinion article. Secretary Marco Rubio had a completely different view. Within minutes, the conversation shifted from free speech to immigration law, national security, and one question that continues to divide Americans. Does holding a U.S. visa give someone the same constitutional protections as an American citizen? Here's what unfolded. Jayapal opened by focusing on the case of a Turkish graduate student whose visa had been revoked after she co-authored an opinion piece in a university newspaper. She questioned whether expressing a political opinion should ever become grounds for losing permission to remain in the United States. Rubio immediately reframed the discussion. He argued that the issue wasn't about restricting speech, it was about immigration authority. According to Rubio, the government has broad legal discretion over who receives or keeps a visa, and a visa should be viewed as permission to enter the country, not as a constitutional entitlement. Jayapal wasn't convinced. She pressed him repeatedly, asking where the Constitution allows the Secretary of State to effectively punish someone for expressing an opinion. If the First Amendment protects speech, she argued, how can the government revoke someone's visa because of what they wrote? Rubio returned to the same point each time. He maintained that foreign nationals do not possess a constitutional right to receive or keep a U.S. visa. In his view, Congress granted the Secretary of State authority to revoke visas when national interests require it, and that authority exists independently of whether the individual is a citizen. Jayapal emphasized constitutional freedoms and questioned whether political expression was being treated as a security threat. Rubio emphasized immigration law, arguing that the government routinely grants or denies visas based on broader national interests, not simply criminal conduct. Jayapal questioned why federal agents reportedly arrested the student while wearing face coverings and why she was detained before eventually being released by a federal judge. Rubio separated those issues. He said the State Department's responsibility ends with visa decisions, while arrest procedures are carried out by other federal agencies. As for officers wearing masks, he argued they are sometimes used to protect law enforcement personnel from potential threats. Jayapal wasn't satisfied. She argued that if someone can lose legal status after writing an opinion article, Americans should be asking where the line is drawn between protecting national security and protecting free expression. Rubio answered that the government is not obligated to allow every foreign national to remain in the country. In his words, visas are a privilege, not a constitutional guarantee. Near the end of the hearing, Jayapal introduced another example involving refugee admissions, suggesting there appeared to be inconsistent standards. Rubio responded that refugee applications and student visas operate under entirely different legal frameworks and shouldn't be treated as equivalent. By that point, neither side appeared interested in persuading the other. Jayapal continued framing the issue as a constitutional concern involving free speech and civil liberties. Rubio continued framing it as an immigration and national